This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gannis. Here's what you need to know for today, Thursday, March 12th. Besides the fact I'm in my Podcast Movement Evolutions hotel room. We're going to have some fun tomorrow. Speaking of, let's talk about it. Last Call Podcast Movement Evolutions will kick off tomorrow at Skybox on 6th in Austin, Texas. The event will feature 3 days of curated panels, networking events, podcasting, and live performances with celebrity guests. Admission is free, no South by Southwest badge or separate ticket required. South by badge holders do receive priority access to the event. The venue has a capacity of 400 with an overflow area capable of holding 350 more. Pre-registration is highly encouraged, and a link is available in the show notes. Now for our top story, the bigger picture behind Apple HLS. Last month, Apple announced HTTP live streaming, HLS, distribution is coming to Apple Podcasts. Acast, Amazon's Art19, Triton Digital's Omni Studio, and SiriusXM Media, including AdsWiz and Simplecast, have all announced as launch partners for Apple Podcast HLS distribution. Sounds Profitable founder Bryan Barletta zooms out from the technical specifics of the announcement to look at what this means for the industry. Apple bringing HLS to Apple Podcasts doesn't just impact podcasting. Typically, companies implement HLS internally, owning both hosting and receiving apps. The Apple Podcast implementation connects a publicly available app to multiple distribution hubs. This puts control back in the hands of hosting platforms. Control that felt like it might be slipping away from podcasting in recent years. This opens the door for external uses across industries. What does the world look like if a big multimedia publisher like Sony wants to use HLS to distribute their music out to Apple Music, Spotify, or YouTube Music? Or their movies to Netflix, HBO Max, Disney+. Podcasting should not ask who watches video on Apple Podcasts, but how many creators and rights holders across industries will adopt RSS-inspired HLS? Next up, more influential than influencers, how podcasting is redefining media impact in Singapore. Acast has published a new Singapore edition of Podcast Pulse, finding 97% of Singaporean podcast listeners say a podcast has changed their mind about a topic. By comparison, the global median is 84%. 52% of local listeners now rate podcasters more credible than journalists, 50%, and YouTubers, 48%. The study also notes that podcasters lead significantly on honesty, that's 69% versus 31%, and trustworthiness, 64% versus 36%, compared to social-first talent. Commercially, 69% of listeners have considered a brand for the first time because of a podcast, and 67% have made a purchase after a host recommendation. Next up, behind the curtain, America's Big Lie. A November 2025 Pew survey finds 21% of U.S. adults use X. Only 10% of them use it daily. With 1 in 5 Americans on this loud discourse platform, writers Jim Vandehey and Mike Allen propose growing nationwide division is a social media myth. They point to census data showing the number of Americans age 16 plus formerly volunteering returned to pre-pandemic status in 2023. That's 28.3%. If you'd like more on the topic of social media bubbles and division, a little birdie tells me that this article is relevant to AJ Feliciano's panel for Companion at Podcast Movement Evolutions. Hey, that starts tomorrow. Now for our final top story, YouTube lays claim to another crown, the world's largest media company. Financial research firm MoffettNathanson has crunched the numbers and found that YouTube's estimated $62 billion of revenue in 2025 puts them ahead of Disney's $60.9. Though that does exclude Disney's Experiences division, which encompasses the parks and whatnot. Just over $40 billion of that came from ad revenue. YouTube also passed a milestone last year in the form of $100 billion paid out to content creators since 2021. As for the rest of the news, AdsWiz has announced the rollout of direct YouTube publishing and unified analytics for Simplecast, enterprise, and professional users. Videos uploaded to the service will now also generate an audio file that's automatically distributed via RSS to audio podcast platforms, and, once the feature is rolled out, distribute video to Apple Podcasts via HLS. Co-Host has unveiled Show Analytics Manager, a new feature in their prefix product that allows brands and podcasters to access dashboards covering downloads, unique listeners, and audience profiles. Hernan Lopez has just published part 2 of What I Do in 2026 on his newsletter Streamonomics. Sports Social Podcast Network has a new article discussing how podcasts complement modern sports sponsorship, giving brands more depth in sports fans. Next Audio is now AdsWiz's exclusive sales representative for streaming and podcast across 7 Middle East North Africa countries. Airwave has signed an ad sales and promotion deal with bestselling author and longevity expert Dave Asprey for his show, The Human Upgrade: Biohacking for Longevity and Performance. And Nueva Network has announced Que Onda Today, an AI-driven platform built in partnership with StreamGuys to deliver geo-targeted weather, traffic, and news via digital audio streams to 20 top Hispanic markets. That'll do it for today's episode of The Download. If you want to find everything I just talked about, you can click the one link in your show notes that'll take you to today's episode post on soundsprofitable.com. You can also subscribe to the newsletter version while you're there to get the next issue direct to your inbox. Today's episode was produced by myself, Bryan Barletta, and Tom Webster. It was also recorded on a Nomano in my hotel room. Shout out Nomano. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for the download recap and possibly at Skybox on 6th. See you there.